Today, we are speaking all things weight management on the She Runs Strong podcast, which is powered by Coach Parry. And I know that this is such a massive, massive topic and quite pertinent for females over the age of 40. It's something we hear about a lot. How do I lose weight? How do I manage my weight? How do I get rid of these few extra pounds that just won't go away? And so today we are doing a deep dive into this topic to give you some really good information and hopefully some practical information that can help you during this time. So as always, I am joined by Nikki Friedman, who Nikki, I'm a bit of an Instagram fan, and I noticed this morning on Instagram that you were missioning around on the track. How is that going with darker mornings that are happening in the UK?
Oh, well, yeah, it's quite interesting. For those of you who don't know, I run a early morning Wednesday track group, which is just for local folks to come along to and practice their running fast. And so it's been getting darker and darker in the mornings, and we can't get the floodlights on, so it's getting a little bit dicey.
Yeah.
But today, I had my bag. I finally got my bag out of storage because we moved house a wee while ago, and with all my toys. So I took my agility ladders and my hurdles down. Mini hurdles down to track. So we had a lot of fun on track this morning. The weather was a bit grey and a bit rainy, but it was great. And so I thought I'll post some nice vids on track. My runners, they hate it when I start filming and videoing them because they just don't want to be on it. Especially, I very often video them at the bits that are slightly trickier when I give them some agility to do or some funny drills to do, and then I take a video. And so I'm not always the favorite coach at that particular point.
I was going to say that's a bit cruel, Nikki.
I know, but it's amusing for me. And then we clocked into some nice solid 1K reps thereafter. So it was a good morning down on track. It was an early morning up, so that was good. It's good. And how are you doing? How are things with you and stuff before we get going?
Very good. And ticking over. Life is moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And I just can't believe how quickly this year has gone, really. So
it is moving fast. Yes. Okay. So today's topic, looking at weight management. Okay. So this is a topic that's pretty hot for a lot of females. And certainly when I came into my 40s and into my 50s, I think a lot of my kind of running colleagues and friends and stuff noticed a little change in how their body was, perhaps, and maybe a few pounds creeping on here or there, or just things becoming a little bit harder to deal with in the same way as when they were in their 30s. And so we're going to look a little bit around that, not necessarily in sort of heavyweight diets and stuff, but just that kind of tricky phase that we sort of blame on menopause a lot, and it often does get the bad rep. But why is it becoming an issue in your 40s and 50s, and what's kind of happening and what's going on, and why is it so hard for female endurance runners, and from that we're talking 5Ks up to marathons to ultras. Why are we picking up those little bits of weight? So that's what we're looking at a little bit today.
Definitely. Just a disclaimer though, guys, or everyone who's listening, one of the things that we're coaches and I'm sports scientists. And so one of the things that we're not focusing on here is that we're not looking at particular aspects like disordered eating, aspects like obesity. Those are very specific cases. And as Nikki mentioned, we're going to be focusing on female endurance runners and weight management. So if those are considerations or concerns that you have, please rather speak to your physician. And rather than taking this advice from the podcast. Hopefully there will be some valuable and practical tips here, but definitely just as a disclaimer, those are not the aspects that we'll be focusing on today. So Nikki, this is, let's jump in. I mean, this is something that we get asked often, and what for you, what is the biggest thing that you've seen and maybe experienced between yourself and your friends, in terms of, in this point of time, runners do like picking up a little bit of extra kind of weight and why, what do you think is one of the biggest reasons why they are picking up weight over this time?
I think this is such a minefield and an interesting subject. And there's sort of, as you come in, I know for myself, when I started really getting into marathon running was probably late 30s and early 40s, and was doing quite a few marathons. But then around 45-ish, maybe a bit later, it became a little bit more challenging around that stage. And just maybe I picked up a few injuries, or maybe I was a bit off running, and then I would come back to running, but I would notice I'd be a few pounds heavier here and there. And it was just becoming a little bit tricky. And I also noticed the same, I'd be going out running with my friends and they'd be saying, "Oh, I've picked up this half stone. I don't know where it's come from. It's menopause." That's that was the standard excuse and blame that we did a lot. And, we'd be trying things, and certainly a lot of my friends would be. And my non-running friends, I noticed that they also had that issue too. So when I would be away for weekends with my non-running friends, they would be picking up quite a bit of weight, and they'd be struggling to find that balance of when you were in your 20s and 30s, it was a little bit easier to drop that weight. But as you were coming into your 40s, 50s, it was becoming difficult, and it was hanging about and it wasn't going. So I think there was a wee bit of a trend there, definitely, for kind of the fad diets, which is something we're going to have a look at here, and a trend certainly with my running friends for a bit more fasted running in the mornings. Some fad diets and the good old cabbage soup rearing its head every now and then. And I think it's a struggle, I mean, it was definitely, and I still, if I'm honest, struggle a little bit. I can quite easily find that things can knock out of kilter with my body, and quite quickly, if I'm not careful with things. So I don't know. It's a really interesting subject, this.
It really is, and Nikki, I mean, I've just hit 40, so it's it will let's put that out there. Brave to admit it, but I mean, I feel 29, but definitely hit 40, and I mean, I can also just feel those changes just don't happen as quickly. But in my experience with some of the females that I've worked with who are runners and perhaps over the age of 40, 45, 50. The first thing that they try to do when they're wanting to manage their weight or lose weight is they restrict their diet, right? And as you've just mentioned, fasted running, fasted mornings, or intermittent fasting throughout, and then the fad diets that sort of come in, there's the low carb, high fat, there's the protein diet, so there's the carnivore diet. There's so many different ones.
A quick fix, basically.
Exactly. But all of them essentially mean that you are trying to get yourself into a calorie deficit of sorts, right? And if we're looking to manage our weight, we have to balance what goes in versus what goes out. And so you can look at any of these diets, whether it's a keto diet, whether it's a low carb, high fat, whether it's intermittent fasting, all of them are trying to get you into a calorie deficit in some sort of way, just manipulating different things. Low carb manipulates your use of carbohydrates. Keto obviously as well, that manage, more ensuring that you have more fat but less carbs. Intermittent fasting is a perfect example. Just eating over a less period of the day. And so
that seems to be the big trend. I notice a lot really want to do the intermittent fasting.
Yes. And we can do a whole other deep dive on whether that is effective or helpful to females in this phase. And I mean, I know both you and I agree that it's not, and the science is clear on that it does throw your hormonal balance out in different ways. And so we're going to dive into other aspects of this. But I think the key point here is just to notice that, or to note that if you are wanting to manage your weight and manage your weight well, it's a balance between what you're putting in and what you're putting out, and whether that is by the use of a diet. And I know some people take up running to start losing weight, but we just need to make sure that, because we are focusing on runners here, that we don't restrict ourselves to the point where we're not fueling our training, because then we know that peri and postmenopausal female runners are at risk of injury as it is, because there are hormonal changes. And so if we're not fueling our training, we're just putting ourselves at more risk of injury, at more risk of underperforming, at more risk of low energy availability, and so on.
So that is quite a difficult sort of aspect you're talking about there. We need to fuel our runs, but we also want to kind of restrict our calories. So that to me is kind of confusing, and I suspect to a lot of older folks a little bit confusing. And so how do we go about that? Can we I think we need to do some basic science on this and maybe dig down into some basic science principles and without getting too deep into this. What do you think, Shona?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, and please stop me if you have, if I am going too sciencey, but really the latest science, and there's a couple of studies that I'm going to refer to, but that show that that menopause isn't the main culprit here. Okay, so, and I know that as I say that, people are gonna be like, "Oh, Shona, you're not even there yet. Don't even say that." And just bear with me here as we go through some of this. I'm not saying that weight loss during this phase isn't more difficult. I'm well aware that it is. But I just really want to get across that the same principles of managing your weight always apply, right? So what goes in and what goes out, and balancing that, and using good exercise principles to try and balance that. Okay, so the science is quite clear at the moment that when we go through menopause, we know that there is an increase in body fat percentage. I mean, that's reported widely across the literature. There's an increase in body fat percentage, and there's a decrease in lean muscle mass, right? And we know that. And so, but there are a couple of studies that if you are controlling for that lean muscle mass, so if people are able to maintain their lean muscle mass, they are able to not allow for their body fat percentage to drop or to increase as much. And there was a particular study that they did where they tracked menopausal females or perimenopausal females over a 6-year period. And they followed up with them over a 6-year period, right? So as they're going through perimenopause and the peaks and troughs of it all, and those women who continued to do resistance training over this time did not see an increase in their body fat percentage, right? So where hormones have always been given as this bad rep and the culprits for increasing weight, it was clear that females who continued to do resistance training did not get an increase in body fat percentage versus females who didn't do resistance training. And so that begs the question to say, well, is it really the hormones that are making us not manage our weight and not able to lose this extra sort of body fat that's happening? And so that was quite a key thing, Nikki. And we've spoken about strength training and building lean muscle over this time. For you, and just I just wanted to ask you. I mean, I know you've mentioned to me before that you used to do strength training a lot through your 40s and yoga, right? Was that
Yeah.
something you found kind of helped in hindsight, looking back?
Oh, in hindsight, absolutely. There's no question. I have always done strength training really since my kids were super young, babies, in fact. And I've always been in the gym doing strength training. Can't say I've always loved it, but I've come around to it a lot more. And I've embraced yoga as well. So for me, I think that's been really critical, actually. And with hindsight, I didn't know it at the time, but it was a good thing to do. And it's definitely helped. And I've definitely maintained my shape, if you like. And I sure I have the odd pound here and the odd, and I still am susceptible like other folks, especially I think there was a phase where my sleep wasn't as good. And I think this might be how menopause does affect. My sleep wasn't great for a wee while, and then I would be quite tired the next day. Then it was more of an effort to train, and I comfort ate. So there was a few things like that. But I think definitely doing the strength training has helped me all the way along, and no question.
And Nikki, sorry, I just want to go into why that is working, right? And why that extra lean muscle mass makes a difference, just so everyone understands, because I can't just say that and assume that everyone's going to believe me. And so really, when we are looking for, how to manage this weight, right? And I've said it's what goes in and what sort of goes out. And so it's not as simple as going calories in, calories out. It's got to do with your total energy expenditure. Okay, so your total energy expenditure, so we call that TEE. So that's how much energy we utilize in a day, and that is made up of a couple of different factors. So we utilize energy while you are there listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. You are utilizing energy just for your bodily functions to work. Okay, so we call that our basal metabolic rate, right? So that's one aspect of how we use energy. The other aspect is then obviously, excuse me, our exercise, our training, our running, our strength. But there's also another aspect there, which is almost unconscious exercise. So walking to the car, walking to the shops, walking up the stairs, moving and fidgeting. I'll talk with my hands. I mean, these are unconscious movements. And then there's another element there, which is your thermic effect of food. So when we digest our food, we burn energy to do that. Okay, so this total energy expenditure is made up of all these different parts. And so the first one being our basal metabolic rate. When we have an increase in lean muscle mass, our basal metabolic rate goes up because our muscles utilize energy. And so when we have more muscles, we have a higher basal metabolic rate. So automatically we are going to use more energy or more calories. So that's a bonus already. And that's why I'm such a big advocate for increasing this lean muscle mass over time.
So even lying on a couch with
Even
more muscles, we're
you
going
will
to
be
be burning
more calories. And I mean, a very flippant way to think about it is to think that if someone is lying in bed, in a hospital bed, in a coma, they would still lose weight or mass, because their bodily functions are still moving, it's still working, right? And so I know it's a very extreme way to think about it, but just to reiterate that basal metabolic rate is key. And so if we have more muscle, we increase our basal metabolic rate. And then I always have my athletes in this phase tell me that they, the conscious exercise, the training sessions, the running, they go, yeah, but Shona, I'm training as much as I was when I was in my 20s. And I'm like, cool, that's good. You might be training as much as you were, but you're definitely not doing the unconscious movements as much as you were in your 20s and 30s. My job, as an example, has changed. My sports science job in the beginning, when I was in my 20s and 30s, was on the field and in the gym and testing athletes and running around and doing all sorts of things. And Nikki, I mean, for your kids are a little bit more grown up, but I'm sure you were running around after
Oh
kids.
my goodness. Yeah. I mean, I used to go out for a run and then I would come back and I'd be taking kids to school and I'd be on my feet or taking them to gym classes or swimming they don't need any of that now. I can sit on the couch.
Yeah.
And I realized that I need to be more active, but no, my life is much more sitting down now than it's ever been. And probably that's been the way for a good few years compared to in my 30s and 40s where I was running around. And that's probably the same for most mothers. You're chasing after your kids quite a lot and that is tiring. And then that also flips and you tend to eat a little bit more because you are tired too. So there's a bit that as well.
Definitely. And one of the symptoms of menopause is an increase in appetite. That is, the changes in hormones are affecting that. So, again, I'm not saying here that I think we need to stop blaming the hormones for the increase in weight. But of course, they have an indirect effect on it. So yes, there's an increase in appetite. Yes, when you are going through the peaks of perimenopause, you're feeling fatigued and tired. So you don't want to move, you don't want to train. And so all of these things are happening. So yeah, and I want to just reiterate here that I'm not saying that managing your weight in this phase isn't more difficult. It definitely is. But I just think there are aspects that are more in our control now. So instead of just blaming hormones and saying, oh, we can't lose weight because of estrogen. Now we can go, okay, we can manage weight because we can increase our lean muscle. We can increase our daily activity in terms of not necessarily our focused training sessions, but our walking and our moving. And, instead of getting in the car to go to the shop, maybe let's take a walk or let's take some focused walks in and around our days. Nikki, I mean, do you feel like that made, you spoke about your strength training, but you also spoke about like friends who aren't sporty, who really felt this.
Yeah. So what I noticed was I had a few friends that I used to go away with every year for a weekend, and they weren't they weren't into their exercise and sports, which is fair enough. Not everybody is, but they did start for a year. I think there was maybe it was coming up for a big party. I can't remember, but then they had a goal, so they were driven. So they started doing some dance classes, and it was a kind of a dance class every day. But then as a result, they started looking at their nutrition as well. And I think what you're saying there is really, it is looking at your nutrition more. It is back to the kitchen and looking at your nutrition. And these guys did, and they did lose the weight, and they were looking fabulous at the party. I think it was another friend's 50th. That's correct, and they looked fabulous at the party, um, and and it was great. But they brought in all aspects. They very much focused on the nutrition.
Okay.
And then they got themselves doing a little bit of exercise on top of that and movement. But their kids were older and had left home. So they were living a different life. They were quite often, you know, it becomes quite fun when your kids live home. You can do lots of things at the weekend, but that is often socializing and maybe a little bit of eating and drinking in with that. So, yeah, I think that's a really interesting topic. And I think you're kind of saying the basics there of what we've known for a long time with the 20, 30-year-olds still apply here for us females. And it's a little bit harder because we have these chaotic hormones.
Hormones. Yeah, exactly. So the same principles apply, right? So it is nutrition because we have to look at what we're putting in, right? And so that is key. But the elements of what we put out, so in terms of the exercise and the activity, is is less than what it was, and so, and it is less for the reasons that we've mentioned, that hormones are fluctuating and making us tired and increasing our appetite and not letting us sleep, and perhaps a few more injuries, and so then we are out of training for a while. And so
That's the hard bit.
that is absolutely the hard bit for sure. And so we need to make sure that we don't just blame the hormones. I am blaming the hormones for those things, but I really like I want females to take their power back here, to go, not just, well, I'm in perimenopause and I'm picking up weight, and because my estrogen's all over the place. Again, you now have a little bit of control to go, okay, yes, my estrogen's all over the place and it's making me tired, but today then I'm going to focus on specific nutrition, because I'm perhaps not doing as much activity. But then on days when I am doing more activity, to really make sure that I'm fueling that activity, so that I'm not going into a restrictive diet necessarily. Because we haven't really mentioned this, Nikki, but as we are restricting ourselves as females, and this is why I know you and I are not fans of fasted or fasted training and intermittent fasting, but there are these, when we restrict ourselves, our body as females, we go into a slight state of stress, and so our cortisol levels go up a little bit more. And then when we exercise and we run, exercise is a stress, it's a good stress, but the cortisol levels go up again. And then if we're not giving ourselves the replenishment or the post-training recovery, we go into more stress. And so the body then hangs on to what it has, because it feels like it's almost going to war, to put it in an extreme sort of way. And so if we just keep fueling our training, you'll find that cortisol level and those stress levels will generally come down. And I know that is the first thing that goes with females trying to manage their weight, is they restrict. And it's such a backwards concept. But if you ate more, if you fueled in and around your training, so not necessarily just eating more in the day, but just fueling your training, your body will kind of balance that out a little bit more. It won't feel like it's in a state of stress.
So when we're talking about fasted running, we're talking about not eating in the morning very often, and even not eating afterwards. So, but for those people who kind of go, but I can't, I have a lot of friends who say, I can't really eat. I mean, guys can get away a little bit more with the fasted running. So let's just, obviously this is a female podcast. So, but what should the females do, in your opinion? What do you tell your athletes to do if they give you that, I really can't eat till lunchtime sort of?
If you want to recover from sessions faster, not feel tired all the time, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join me in my upcoming training specifically for female runners over the age of 45. In it, I'll share with you my simple 5-step framework that'll transform your running. Simply scan the QR code on screen now, or click on the link in the description to save your seats in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there. I mean, to be honest, I'm one of those people. I don't cook, and what our listeners and viewers will start learning about me is I'm a terrible cook, and I don't enjoy cooking. And so any time in the kitchen is time I don't want to spend. And so I struggle to eat in the mornings, and I'm a morning runner, and I struggle to eat beforehand. So my advice is always to start small, right? So start with a banana. Something is better than nothing. And piece of advice that I got from Nikki, our other Nikki in our team, Nikki de Villiers, our dietitian, is to have a small glass, so 250 milliliter glass of fruit juice, preferably like a cranberry or blueberry juice, because very often the orange juice is quite high in fructose, and that can affect the gut a bit. But yeah, if you're having, if you're having, and that I can have easily. I have a coffee and I have my fruit juice, and off I go out on my run. So at least you're getting some elements of carbohydrates to fuel your run. Yeah, that's Nikki, and with you, I mean, I know you're very good at fueling, but what have you said to some of your athletes who struggle?
Yeah, so I have a few athletes who don't really eat, and they run so early in the morning. We're talking 4 a.m. in the morning,
God.
and you almost feel like they need to have breakfast at 10 o'clock before they go to bed. So I have, over time, just slowly eked away. So one of my ladies, Lisa, she makes a big overnight oats. She makes a big pot of overnight oats, and then she has a few spoonfuls in the morning before she goes out with her coffee, and then she eats the rest of the bowl when she comes back, and that's her nicely fueled. So she never ate at all, ever. So I feel that that's progress, and I'm happy that she's doing, and that's about as much as she can sort of manage. So that's a good thing. My husband laughs. I basically claim that I have a part 1 and a part 2 for breakfast. I have my pre-breakfast before I go out for a run and my breakfast afterwards. And I have about 6 meals a day because I love eating. So I don't have a problem of, I could never restrict. So I generally am similar to you. I often have banana, peanut butter, or almond butter, a little bit of toast, and then I come back and have oatmeal or porridge, as we know it in Scotland, and eggs and stuff. So I think just training your body into it a little bit, maybe getting up 5 or 10 minutes earlier so you come round a little bit.
Yeah.
And your body's, because that's often you're just, if you are running first thing in the morning, you need a little bit of time for your body just to wake up, and
Yep.
so it can digest the food.
No, for
But
sure.
I think it's interesting, and I think as well, if we're saying that it's back to the kitchen and nutrition is the key here. I think about planning your week as well in terms of nutrition and how you're going to plan. Because if you've got a plan for running, you're going to know the days that you're running or the days that you're lifting as well. And then planning the fueling around those particular sessions is going to be quite key. And if you've got a plan in place, you're more likely to be successful.
Oh, Nikki, sorry. Yeah, I absolutely love this because it's like you're speaking at me, because I don't cook, I mean, it's not that I mean, I don't cook. So very often my evening meals are, salads with protein. So like a tuna or chicken salad. That probably don't have enough carbs, to be honest, in the evenings. But yeah, but I find that in weeks when I have not planned my meals, or very often what I'll do is I'll cook on a Monday and then I'll eat off, that for the rest of the week.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
if
I
I
do.
don't plan that, then things go out the window, right? Because then I'm busy and I'm running around. I mean, I don't have children, but I'm running around doing lots of things, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I haven't eaten. So then I'll just stop at a restaurant and have something to eat, or just
And you grab all the food.
yeah. And very often, if I'm stopping at a restaurant to sit and do some work and eat, I'll have a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine, which I would never have at home in the week, And
Right.
so planning becomes absolutely key to just to be held accountable, because you're not going to make those decisions on an impulse. I mean, you are going to make those decisions on an impulse. You're not going to make them when you've planned out your nutrition and your training for the week. I absolutely love that. I think that's such a
Yeah.
key
And
thing.
as a female endurance runner, you're going to have a plan probably that you're following for your marathon, or your ultra or your 5K or whatever you're doing. So actually planning the nutrition alongside, because it's just going to be fundamental, really, isn't it? And I think it's probably the thing. I think sometimes we think we're running, we're exercising, it's okay. We can outrun our bad diet, that classic phrase, we can outrun it. But actually, that needs a little bit of thought and planning too. And like you say, it's still the basics. It's like if you eat lots of cake, if you drink lots of wine, if you overindulge in these things, we're
Yeah.
not saying never, but it's not gonna help at this
Yeah.
particular.
And that, that's, sorry, Nikki, that outrun a bad diet is it's not for females over the age of 40. It just does not work because of those cortisol levels that I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. Because when we are restricting ourselves and we just think that we're training hard, our body actually registers a lower basal metabolic rate, and it goes, "Oh, I can survive on this. I don't need
Mhm.
to. I don't need more." And then when we do eat and drink more, then the body again just hangs on to it. So that outrunning a bad diet, it just doesn't work. And we haven't even mentioned this, but if we are restricting because we're trying to, just keep going, to be losing weight or managing that weight, and we're training, we're putting ourselves at risk and of low energy availability and what we term relative
Yes,
energy deficiency in sports. And I don't want to go into massive elements on that because it's a whole deep dive on its own. But just
definitely.
understand that if you are underfueling, you are putting your body at risk of injury, of underperformance, of fatigue, of stress fractures, of all sorts of concerns. And so, yeah, it's a deep dive on its own, but we just we just need to get back to this point of the basic principles are really what is key here, and what works.
Yeah, and I think when you kind of go through your 40s and 50s and you're kind of maybe your hormones are a little bit chaotic and unbalanced, really trying to keep your body as balanced and stable as possible is definitely going to help. And so that planning of nutrition and just not overindulgence is going to definitely just help a little bit. Or the restrictive diets, again, unbalancing your body, then you're just going to hit that sort of up and
Yeah,
down lurching a little bit and stuff. And this is where, getting a bit of maybe hormone replacement can help a little bit for the stability and then maybe bring you back into balance. Because if you're not sleeping at night, there's a whole host of other things there. Because
mm,
definitely when you're unaware and you're coming into perimenopause and these symptoms are starting to show, but you're not sure what's happening, and then you're maybe not sleeping at night, you're tired the next day, you're eating a bit of sugary sweets and stuff, and then the weight's popping on and you're not really sure what's going on, and then having to bring that back into balance is quite hard, I
yeah,
think, at that point as well. And that is, I suppose, some of the kind of menopausal struggle a little bit, I guess, isn't it? Of just understanding your body, trying to get that stableness in your body.
yeah. And being gentle with yourself in that phase, right? Like just
Yeah.
knowing that that is what's going on, right? So don't try and power through a day when you're feeling absolutely fatigued, but you can adapt other elements. You can adapt nutrition that you're then taking in. So yeah,
Yes.
I think that's, I might have turned a few eyeballs when people were listening when I say that I don't think menopause is to blame for the weight gain. Not directly. I don't believe that the changes in hormones is, I mean, perhaps, a little bit of insulin resistance, very often in that tummy kind of area. But the science is very clear that if we maintain other elements, we don't see this increase in body fat. So yeah, so maybe just in summary, because we have
Yeah.
jumped across many different elements here. I just first and foremost, weight management is about balancing calories in, calories out. That's a little bit more complicated. So it is more about making sure that we increase our basal metabolic rate by increasing our lean muscle mass. We make sure that we are obviously moving because we're runners. We would have
Yeah.
been doing that anyways, but we increase our other activities of daily living, and that we manage what's coming in from a nutrition point of view so that we make sure that we are eating right and that we are fueling our training and that we're not restricting our diet. So those would be the elements that I would suggest people manipulate and try and work to try and manage their weight in this time.
Yes, and there's a lot there. There's a lot to deal with. But I think fueling your runs and planning your nutrition around your running in the week, around your training, has got to be fundamental for the endurance runner, the female endurance runner of
Definitely.
any age, really, but
Yeah.
even more so when you're a bit older. Nice one. We've covered a lot there. There's a lot
We
in
have,
that.
and there's a lot in there, and I do think that there's a lot more to come, and so
Yes.
I'd love it if there are more questions from this. I mean, pop them in the comments.
Yeah,
You know,
pop the
like,
questions away. Great.
we want to
We'll
we want to
address
hear
them.
your thoughts, and if this is something you've tried, so yeah, for me, definitely, like, takeaways, strength training is definitely going to help in increasing your activities of daily living, and as Nikki says, just managing that nutrition. But if you've tried this and it's worked, I would love to hear from you as well. We would love to hear from you. And yeah, if you're really struggling, then, or if something else has worked for you, let us know. Pop it in the comments down below. But yeah, great topic. And I know it's not the first and last time that we talk about this, Nikki. There's going to be more times about this. But
Definitely worth chats in the future. Great stuff. Good.
for sure.
Yes. Excellent.
Awesome. Well, good. Looking forward to seeing you again next week, Nikki, and all the listeners and viewers as well. So, yeah, stay tuned and be sure to subscribe and like all the things and share on the socials for the She Runs Strong podcast powered by Coach Parry. Thanks all for listening.
Great. Bye.